How would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have Shirley, which is the founder of Decisive, which is a decision science company that trains people and teams in complex problem solving and decision making skills using the area method. So Sherry, tell us, what are the 5 steps that you recommend to entrepreneurs in order to achieve the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Thank you for inviting me to be here. So I think the first thing is really to know how important it is to be a thoughtful decision maker. And then from there, you can use my system, the area method, as a way that you can solve complex problems. And area has a couple steps to it. It's an acronym for how you move through a quality due diligence process. The A in area is for absolute information up close on the target of your decision. That's step one. The R is relative information, putting that information from your absolute target into its ecosystem to understand the environment in which it operates. That's step two. And then the E in area is actually exploration and exploitation. So that's steps 3 and 4. And those are moving beyond document-based sources to really identify good people in exploration and ask them good questions to understand the difference between the map and the terrain. And then the second E, exploitation, is where you confront your cognitive biases. It gives you a series of creative exercises to look at the diagnosticity of the data that you've collected, to check and challenge where you've made unhelpful assumptions and judgments. And then the fifth step is actually the final step of the word area. It's analysis, where I give you a way to think about how to put all your information back together to make a better big decision.
Problem solving, the key in order to have a successful business, because let's face it, if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening out there, uh, big become a good entrepreneur equals to become a great problem solver. And I remember I got a degree in chemical engineering, and they for 5 years they would give me problems. These people, math problem, chemistry problems, biology problems, physics problems, that they were a big headache to solve them actually. 5 years in the university, and after 5 years, I'm thinking, well, why am I spending 5 years here solving this problem that I never gonna use in my life? This is totally useless. When I realized my life as an entrepreneur, that somehow I spent 5 years in that university, and those math problems, these physics problems, they were all visual problems, but there were problems. So somehow I end up with the capacity external to solve problems. When I see a problem in business, I know that can have several solutions. I know that I need to break it down. I know a few things about problem solving because I'm an engineer and we have been trained to solve problems. I didn't know that when I was in university. I never find the point. I just find very difficult to solve them, and they were giving us again and again and again for so many years, and I didn't find the point. So sharing, solving problem is a talent or a skill that entrepreneurs can have. Basically, the more you skill is, the more you practice, the better you become. You know, if you want to drive a car, if you practice more, everyone can drive a car. It depends how much you practice. So the more you skill based means the more you practice, the better you become. Or do you really need to be a talent like Albert Einstein to solve the problem in order to succeed as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so there's two kinds of learning. There's knowledge and skill. You're exactly right. And I consider decision making to be a skill, which means I can teach it to you. And then you can use those skills to apply them for all of the problems that crop up in your life. So I
Yeah, you can
completely,
teach me, but then I have to practice, right?
Oh, I think practice is really important, right?
How we
Just
practice problem solving?
Well, I think that you can use a system like the area method and you can test it out for a problem you've already solved because you've already been through the process. So you can use it as a rear view mirror exercise to sort of see where and how it guides you to do something different. But you can also just apply it to something that's going on in your life now. And because it asks you to keep a record of your work, you actually will have an audit trail of both your work and your thinking. And that is something that can hold you accountable so you don't have an evolving hypothesis, which is where you may move the goalposts after a decision has been made to recreate why you thought you went ahead and did something and actually compare it to the body of work that you actually did to solve the problem. Did you have good luck, bad luck? Did you ask the right questions? Did you foresee the risks correctly? And this can give you a way to also constantly build a book of you as a decision maker to make better big decisions and learn from your past.
Having lacking of problem solving skills can have a very bad impact in your mental health. I think that we see a lot of entrepreneurs out there that they are emotionally damaged, or emotionally they have a high impact emotionally because they are overwhelmed with so many problems, which is what it means being an entrepreneur. I think that every day is a problem or more than one, and you have to develop the skill, the ability to solve them or to start to work on the solution of all of them parallel, right? So it's not about solving even one problem. You have to have the ability to deal with this. And guess what? When you solve those ones, and new ones, they are right, they are already queuing. Um, However, if we don't get an effective way to solve problems, it can become that the entrepreneurs, they are ending up with a lot of stress. They All those problems get accumulating and accumulating and accumulating, and now three problems I cannot find the solution, five problems I cannot find the solution, 10 problems I cannot find the solution, and all these emotional pain can end up in physical pain. People can end up with heart attack, with cancer, with the stress. We have an entrepreneur that we interviewed here in this broadcast that he was turning over $1 million in three companies, and the guy was vomiting blood. And he told me, Harry, I decide this day that I run this business. The business don't, they're not running me. And he took a plane. He went, I think, to Thailand for a year. So lacking of problem solving skills can lead to emotional pain and difficult pain. So what is the message that you have for the entrepreneurs out there that they're not even aware that that if you develop problem solving skills, you're gonna make your life so easy and you're gonna be mentally more stable to run and to grow your business?
Well, I've worked with an awful lot of entrepreneurs over the years. And I think there's a couple things. The first is, until just recently, we haven't really thought of decision making as a discipline, which means most people will go through their formal education without ever really investigating their thinking. And that's one of the many reasons why I think podcasts and books are so useful to people. The things that we go through school that we've missed out on, we get another chance. We can be lifelong learners. And so I've written 3 books on problem solving that people can use to help them make
Wow.
their decisions. The first one is called Problem Solved, and it's on personal and professional high stakes decision making. And that introduces my area method that we just spoke about. The second book is called Investing in Financial Research, and it applies the area method to financial and investment decisions. And then my third and most recent book is called Problem Solver, and it is my research into what I call problem solver profiles. This is the psychology of personal decision making and the idea that there's sort of 5 dominant ways that people approach their decisions, and each has some beautiful strengths to them, but they also each come with some limitations, some cognitive biases that can really impede clear thinking. And so better understanding your own decision-making approach and then learning a system for complex problem solving can be a game changer for anybody, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're doing something else with your career.
Decision making, one of the one of the more complex things to train and to deal with the entrepreneur. I remember I was about to speak in one event in London not long ago, and the speaker before me, he was talking about critical thinking, and he was talking about, you see, when you have to take this idea, you have to check this, you have to check that, you have to evaluate this, you have to evaluate this, you have to evaluate this. And after is when you take the decision. And I'm thinking, I'm saying, look, these guys sitting in this audience, they are entrepreneurs, they are startup founders. At the stage that they are now starting the business, if they go through this critical thinking process that you described, my friend, they will never gonna get anything done. You know, when you start, when you have a startup, you have to take decision quickly, and a lot of them, because it's different dynamic. Of course, if you are on the CEO or board meeting of the large multinational, of course, you have a team, you can analyze all these variables, you can do all this research, and then you can make the right decision. But we need to put the decision making into context, because sometimes I speak in a lot of events all over the world, and I see people talking about this topic, and it's not that they don't know about the topic. I believe that they know a lot, but sometimes you have to be careful to which audience you share this, because there is a lot of different, in my opinion, critical thinking method when you are a startup founder, when you have 10 employees, when you have 100 employees, when you have 10,000 employees. But I don't know. What is your point of view in this? This is a general point for critical thinking and for decision making, regardless which stage of the business you are, or do you think that it has to be? It's not the same when you have a startup that when you have 10 employees, when you are 100, and when you have. I'm telling you, that's my view as an entrepreneur, because
Yeah,
I've been in the other side. I've
I
been
think
a startup founder, and I've been in several stages of this process, and my decision making things vary a lot, depend the size of the company. That makes sense.
I don't think it has to do with the size of the company. I think it has to do with the stakes involved in the decision. I think there are some decisions where you don't want a system for complex problem solving. You want to make the decision, and if the decision goes awry, it's something that's reversible or changeable. And I think prioritizing and
And
understanding
quickly,
when
you know,
the
right? Quickly you
decision.
decide something, and quickly you know if it works, if it doesn't, and then you try something else. Yeah.
And
I,
that's why this whole ethos in startup land around prototyping is so important, right?
mm,
This idea that you don't need something to be finished, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
generally speaking, you want to be able to get into action, even with very high stakes problems. If you know how to break down and frame them, you
Mm.
can probably identify the smaller pieces where you can move on them, even if there are other pieces that really deserve thoughtful research and analysis. But again, this comes back to thinking about your thinking, knowing how to problem solve, having a system that you can use for complex problem solving. I think of learning about the area method and decision making sort of the way you take vitamins, right? You take a vitamin every morning because you're looking to have a certain kind of underlying health, right? And then if there's a virus going around, hopefully it doesn't hit you as badly, or maybe even you bypass it and you don't catch it at all. But when you really need to know that you're building up that sense of wellness, you want to have something that you've invested in, like the area method or like decision-making skills that work for you, so that whether it's a problem that you need to move on quickly or not, you know what to call upon within your wealth of knowledge to help you be able to solve that problem.
Oh, problem solving, I think I wish that they taught me this in university. Is my understanding reading your bio that you actually are teaching this in the university. What a great idea. Nobody taught me this in university. I had to to fight and to try to solve those problems, physics, maths, and biology and whatever, chemistry. I had to deal with myself, and you know what happened? If I don't solve them, I fail. I fail. You know, they fail you. You have to pass them again, and again, it got a different test. Imagine to the point that when I was in university, we had several teachers that was telling us, "Look, this test that you're gonna take about physics or about math, you can bring any book you want. It doesn't matter. Bring all your books. It's an open book. You can read all the books you want during the exam." I mean, the problem was so difficult that it was invented by the teachers. So there is you can bring all the books you want. It doesn't really matter, because those problems that they will put in front of us, we had never they knew that we never seen in our life, because the teacher invented that just for the exam. So, and then we were facing a massive problem that we don't know loads of them, and it was tough. And if you don't pass this thing, you have a second chance, a third chance, and that's it. Otherwise, you need to do the whole year of engineering again. So it's a lot of, at the beginning you got a lot of fear. If I'm gonna solve this, I'm not gonna solve. Sometimes you study, but I remember we were wondering, what's the point to study if whatever the problem that's gonna put us, we never seen it anyway.
So I
So
think that,
tell us about
yeah,
how beautiful, how great idea to teach problem solving university, yeah, to the engineering school. Which faculty are you teaching to your students? What are
I've
they
been
from?
teaching at Cornell University and
And
also
what are
recently
they studying?
Columbia University. I just want to address your point about problems that you've never seen before. Again, if you know how to break down and frame and solve complex problems, it doesn't matter whether or not you've seen it before, right? So much of our education in school is not doing problems that we've seen, but it's adjacencies. It's really trying to ask us, can we apply the knowledge that we've learned to something that's slightly different? And that's how you continue to grow as a decision maker and hopefully gain confidence that you truly are a problem solver, because you are going to be your own chief decider for your whole life.
Okay, few things that we know about problems. Yes, number one, they have one solution minimum. Could be more than one, but there is no problem without solution. I mean, there are just a few, but they are just an exception of the rule. But if you have a problem, something you can be sure it have one more than one solution. I think that the second point is how you approach this problem, and I think, Cherry, that you're 100% right. The put it in perspective, when you have a problem that is a big problem, break it down in small problems. That's a very good way to, because sometimes you have this problem that is big, but maybe it's big only in your head, right? If you break it down in small problems, and you break it by sections, you will find out that maybe just big problem become a lot of little small problems, right? And those small problems, you can solve some of them really quickly, right?
Well, I think a lot of people just assume that they can start in the problem solving without actually taking that foundational step of framing the problem and breaking it
Can you
down.
describe framing, what that means? Tell
Yes,
us.
so I introduce in my area method this idea of the vision of success, right? Many people start with the problem, but that's very confusing. What do you look for good information? There's so many different ways that you could solve it. as you've mentioned. So what the vision of success invites you to do is to invert your problem solving and instead ask yourself this question: what has to happen in the outcome of the problem for me to know that I've arrived at a good solution? So now what this is asking you to do is to jump over the problem, time travel over it. If you can identify the 1, 2, or 3 things that if you don't solve them, the problem is actually going to fail for you, now you have an idea what to deeply and creatively research to actually arrive at that vision of success. And that inversion is very powerful. You can use it for small problems, but you can certainly use it for large and complex and high stakes problems as well.
The problem that we solve all the problem. This we teach a lot to our entrepreneurs in our conferences because Sherry, sometimes, yeah, we become good at problem solving. As an entrepreneur, we have so many problems, but sometimes entrepreneurs, they get lost in translation with so many problems and a lot of problems adding up every single day or every single week. And they get overwhelmed with problems. And we have a concept that that we share always with our listeners, with our entrepreneurs, which is if they can identify the problem, that if they can solve this one, all the rest of the problems for the company will be solved. So any advice or any
I,
suggestion to entrepreneurs that they know that out of all these problems there is only one of them that they solve that one, all the rest of the problem we solve by themselves. How can they identify that problem?
I think what you're talking about is helping people to manage competing priorities and ultimately to prioritize. And that's what you need to do, because at any moment, a lot of things are vying for your attention. And it's up to you to figure out what your priorities are. If you can't figure out what your priorities are, then nothing is a priority. And so I think that that is what it comes back to. And what I see a lot of entrepreneurs do is, they'll do a little bit of research, but then they actually don't go ahead and analyze their findings. So then they're going into their assumptions and their intuition, and they can be missing things. And this idea that everything has to be fast, well, actually, some things really just need to be accurate, right? So identifying what are those few things and really getting your priorities right and making sure that as you're trying to move quickly, that you're also moving carefully, right? That you actually are not just collecting information, but you're actually analyzing and synthesizing it so that when you make a decision, it's actually over. You don't have to revisit it. Because in this need for speed that people talk about with entrepreneurs, too often they're making a quick decision, they're only partially solving the problem, and therefore they haven't actually solved it and they need to revisit it.
Yeah, it's about finding the sweet spot because I'm on the side of testing and failing fast. Uh, this is I remember when my girlfriend goes through my first book. After she finished, she said, "Harry, if I have to rewrite this book again, I will put that your main characteristic is the speed of implementation, right? So when we're doing something, we really move really, really fast at the speed of lights. This brings uh, no, there is this speed. Let us know quickly what is working, what is not working. However, sometimes too much speed is not good either. I'm telling you because I opened a restaurant once and I lost 200,000 pounds because I was so fast that I didn't analyze the market properly, and the restaurant was a total disaster. So I know that my speed not always work. You need to find the sweet spot in decision making because yeah, for one point, yes, if you go so fast and you test and it doesn't work, you can reiterate really, really fast. But on the other hand, if you jump into something without analyze it properly, you might find after 2 years of your life, and 200,000 at this one, this decision was actually not good. So where is the sweet spot? Because this I can tell you in my experience as an entrepreneur, that if we don't take decisions fast and the early of our startup career, we don't get anything done. That's a fact, because starting a business, you have to do a lot of things. You have to take a lot of
Um,
decisions.
I think again, it comes back to choosing wisely where you move fast.
Hmm.
Because
Wow, that's
you
a great answer.
you
I love
don't,
it.
yeah,
I'm
you don't
gonna
want
take this one for me. I should do this more often myself. Things wisely where I move fast and where I know I usually
that's
move
right.
fast to everything.
That's right, because you're exactly right. Some things you don't really need to spend too much time on. You can move into action, and other things you can't. And I think
I agree with
again,
you.
it comes back to prioritization and differentiating between what is important and what is urgent and how those things overlap with one another.
I learned this one in the hard way. Yeah. So tell us about your student, the student that you teach in the university, what they are studying.
They're studying high stakes decision making.
Oh, wow. That's like in a subject, like in a career.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is
So
a topic in the university now.
yeah,
Wow,
so
what a
at
great idea.
yeah, so at Cornell, the course is called High Stakes. It's called Complex Decision Making. And at Columbia, depending on the course, it could have titles like Decision Making Amid Dilemma or Decision Making Under Pressure and so on. And I think
Wow,
that
the decision making under pressure. This is a good one. Yeah. This one I recommend to all the entrepreneurs.
yes, I have a new article out in Harvard Business Review about decision making amid uncertainty. I think this idea of complex problem solving and how it sort of um, has to get handled when you're under pressure, when there's uncertainty, when there's ambiguity. I think that that's of great interest these days, just given the fast changing and volatile world that we all live in.
Yeah. And then for starting the business, the first step is about most of the time in this broadcast, most of the entrepreneurs that we have interviewed, they always said that the first step, one of the important steps for to grow over £1 million business or $1 million business is to solve a problem, right? To analyze what problem is out there and to solve it. However, it's a little bit more complex than that, because you need to identify a problem that is out there, that you can solve it effectively, so people are willing to pay for it. And sometimes people come, entrepreneurs, founder, talk to me and say, Harry, I invented this, which is unique. No, nobody has thought how about this problem and how to solve it. And I'm thinking through myself, in business, number one is the worst thing that can happen, and is this problem having been developed as a business yet? Probably there is no need for it for the market. So how can we identify what is a real problem and how can we solve? It's a good indicator to have more competitors in the market and know you to be the first one, because they're gonna give you a guidance that there is um, um, a need for it. So if you're an entrepreneur and you are in corporate right now, and now you don't want to live your corporate life anymore, and you want to become an entrepreneur, and you're looking for a business, for a problem to solve and make a business out of it, how you will approach this line of thinking so you can actually start a business on the right track. I was the other day looking at the Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon documentary, and he actually did the market research. He actually um, uh, evaluate the whole market, evaluate the business possibility, evaluate everything, think about what problem he's going to solve. And after everything was analyzed and thinking through effectively, then he started his startup. And I mean, it was not an easy journey like any tech startup, but there you go. He's one of the richest person in the world, right? So how you will have this approach if you're in corporate and you want to do your transition from corporate to become an entrepreneur? How you find the problem? How you will evaluate? What would you take in consideration?
Well, this comes back to the discussion we were having. Notice Bezos wasn't fast. He was looking for accurate. So I
Yeah,
think that
he
that
took his
that
time. He took his time.
it's not just that he took his time, it's what he did with his time,
Hmm.
right? He
That was
identified a
amazing, I think.
problem,
Yeah.
right? He identified a problem, he framed it, he broke it down, he researched it, he analyzed it, he spoke to people about it, he evaluated the diagnosticity of the data, and then he set up something that gave him confidence and conviction at a time when, for many years, the market didn't believe him. They didn't give him credit until all of a sudden that they did, right? He was able to operate without making any money for many years, in part because
He was
he had
focusing in
clear.
this big problem. Yeah, it was a big problem that he wanted to solve, and it was a £1 billion problem that he solved. Yeah, I think people say, you want to become a billionaire, solve a $1 billion problem, right?
Yeah. So notice that that was somebody with real confidence and conviction because he did the work, not because he was moving fast.
He did
And
have the knowledge, though. He did have the knowledge
that's
from
because he
his
went out
previous
and he
experience.
researched. But that's because he went out and he researched it. He tried something and he really developed for himself a worldview that he could apply based on standing on the complex problem solving that he did. So it's a great example of why decision making is so important.
Absolutely, yeah, he did. Because usually in this most of the entrepreneurs, because the only people that can know about this topic is people that have experience in businesses or people that attend your class. The normal entrepreneurs that we have here, that's how they start the business. They solve a problem for themselves, and then they start to solve it to the other ones. They're making some money, and hey, I'm in business. They are um, there are very little, so that's why I'm glad that you're writing books about the topic. I'm a big fan of the problem solving thing, actually. I've been reading about the topic and working on the topic for a while now. And I think that for me, I like problems. I think that the reason that you become an entrepreneur is because you like problems and you like to solve them. Yeah. And I remember in my property business, then every time there was problem for the properties, everybody say, I don't want to touch it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going. So every time that, and it was, there was always very good deals. When the people were coming to me with the property and said, Harry, we have this big problem with this property. I remember once in London in Brick Lane, they come to me, a pub got fired and nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to touch it. In a pub, 3 floors, like 9 rooms, and after nobody want to touch it, and they asked all East London who want to take this pub that got fire, and nobody took it because it was a huge problem landing into me. Yeah, and I'm saying I'm gonna have a look to this pub. Long story short, we managed to turn it around and make it work in 3 months. The thing was turning around and actually working, and we rent out the rooms and everything. But it was because of that. It was because it was a big problem, and people didn't want to face like a big problem. But once you dig in and you actually evaluate everything, we realized that the park what happened was ugly, because top fire, all the walls they were like dark things like that with the smoke. But when we assessed the structure, it was very solid. I mean, the fire brigade can arrive really fast apparently, and the structure was solid. So the people were thinking that they're gonna spend hundred thousand, 200,000 to fix that thing, and I think we fixed it with 10,000. And in 3 months, the whole thing was up and running with all the licenses, with everything. So the point of the story is that in business, um, when it comes big problem, yeah, it could be a room for opportunity if you have, again, Sherry, what you said, if you have the if you know how to approach problem solving, if you know how to see the opportunity in that problem that you're gonna solve, right? Because honestly, most of the best business or the biggest growth that we have, that I have in business, it was not even when it was actually in recession and in time when times were bad. Is when our property business took off and we managed to sell over 5 million. So Sherry, is someone is in love, or our listeners are in love with this conversation? They want to know more about you. They want to know about your books. Tell us the title of your books. Where can they find it, and where can they find more information? How can they find you if they want to
Thank
learn
you.
more about problem solving?
Wonderful. So, first, I invite everybody to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Cheryl Strauss Einhorn, and my website is Area Method, AREA method.com. My first book on personal and professional decision making is Problem Solved. My second book on financial and investment decisions is called Investing in Financial Research. My third book about the problem solver profiles is called Problem Solver. And towards the end of the year, I'll have a new book coming out on artificial intelligence and decision making. So I
Wow.
hope that you'll follow me on LinkedIn, check out the website, buy the books. Let me know how Area is working out for you, and stay tuned for this new upcoming and exciting book. Harry, thank you so much for the conversation today.
Pleasure. I think you're great. I think you're great, and I think that you are working in a area that, for this audience, for the people that this broadcast is, entrepreneurs, is very, very important. I think that is key that people at least have awareness that if you are in business, you need to have some basic skills about problem solving, because again, practice is not enough. You need to, in order to develop a skill, you need two things: you need knowledge and you need practice. If you don't have the knowledge, the issue is that with the trial and error, it takes time, and sometimes, I'm telling you, it's expensive. The trial and error thing, when you go too fast. So thank you so much. And
Thank
for all
you.
of you following the broadcast, see you in our next episode of On Stop, of how brave entrepreneur like Cherry break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.